Do you have a Bush Hog that has a leaky gearbox? I'm going to show you how to fix it. Now, this video is going to be specific to the Bush Hog 2720 that you see right here in the background. Now, of course, there are variations. The differences really are going to be kind of how the gearbox seals come out or how the bearings come out. But I'm going to show you how you can figure it out specifically for yours. So the first thing I did was go right here to the search bar in my web browser on my computer. I typed in Bush Hog 2720 parts manual, and the very first thing that comes up is right here. And when you click that, it takes you right here. This is a PDF showing the actual manual. So shows you kind of how to use it, etc. But when you go all the way down here, right here. So this is going to show you all your information about the different sections. So you got like center frame assembly, etc. Like I said, it shows everything. I'm going to scroll all the way down to where we want to be, which is going to be the gearbox. And it's a little farther down. Pretty detailed manuals. They're actually really good. All right, so we are going to use, all right, center gearbox right here. So our specific leak is going to be with the center gearbox, and it's counterclockwise, it's 1000 RPM. All that stuff is going to be kind of spelled out for you right there. The important part here is this. Mine is leaking from the bottom, and I can see right here that this shaft that comes out of here goes through the bottom and everything, right? You got your bearings right here, 2 different sets of them. You got the gear, of course, that's on the top of it. The important thing for me is going to be number 15 right here. When I go down here and I look at the parts list, number 15 is an oil seal. So I went ahead and got an oil seal. Now the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is going to be to take my blades and stuff off. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now remember, the computer in this case is going to be a huge asset to you, because if you have a different model than I have, or well, we'll just say you have a different model, that's going to show you, and you can look it up on your phone, of course, but that's going to show you how it comes apart to an extent, right? It's not going to tell you like, hey, take this part off first, but it's going to show you in general how it goes together and how it comes apart. When you look at those diagrams, right, they're blown up. So look at the specific one for yours, but I'm going to show you the full process right here on this 2720, more specifically for this center gearbox right there. In order to show you a little better, I went ahead and folded this up. Before you ever get into these machines though, so like in this case, I want to make sure it's safe. I have both wings locked. Before I get under this machine though, I want to make sure it's safe. So I have this wing locked in the upright position. I have that wing locked in the upright position. And then the next important thing, actually the most important really, because we're going to be under there, we have this locked. So you can do this a few different ways. If you don't have this lock mechanism right here that has basically a solid bar that goes from there and you can pin it right here. Now you can also do this another way. The other way you could do is you could take a, let's say a piece of pipe or square tubing, cut it so you can set it around your shaft on the hydraulic cylinder there. And of course, make sure it's long enough, and then set the weight down on it. So you can see that I'm actually not supporting it with these spacers, I'm supporting it with that. Now I'm not a huge fella. That's still not a very big area for me. I'm going to do something that's going to be helpful for me and probably helpful for you. So a jack is going to be important, an impact, some miscellaneous tools. I'll kind of show you all of it. Got our pins off. I have the jack holding this up because it's possible that when you take this nut off, this is going to want to fall down. I'm not going to endure that, so we have it set up. By the way, it's a 2 3/16 socket you're going to need. That came off easy. Now you can see right here, I have a seal that is just completely destroyed. Like, not useful at all. I'm not sure if that's part of the seal or not. We'll look into that, but I do have a new seal for it. Now, I'm going to clean this off with brake cleaner because I'm going to see and make sure that my leak is coming from my seal and not, say, a cracked housing or something like that on my actual Bush Hog gearbox. Since we've already cleaned the shaft of the gearbox up, we're going to let it set and see if we can see it start leaking. You won't be able to see it, but I'm suspecting that this was my issue. The reason I say you won't be able to see it is because I've already flattened this back out. You see it has a lip right here on the inside. So originally this inside was pushed in. So like see where my finger goes through here? That part was pushed forward more than the outer ring right here where like my thumb is at. And so when you tightened the, let's say this specifically, right? When we tightened up this blade, the stump jumper and stuff, because when we got this, it was loose. And so what I wonder is if that was loose and it allowed this to get bent up. And then what happened was that when we tightened it, it made it to where it was putting pressure on the center and allowing oil to slip by. Needless to say, this is straightened out now. So that problem is solved. We also cleaned this up a little bit. And this is pretty easy to see how it goes. So see how it has those two ridges right there? Well, when you look in here, you can see that there's obviously going to be two ridges. This is going to go like so. Oops. This is going to go like so. See how it doesn't wiggle or anything. And then it's got that. And then this part right here. Oops, it's upside down. And then this will set on here for when we actually put it back together. And then that'll ride against the seal and keep the seal from getting, eaten up by this uneven surface. So like I mentioned, we're going to wait for that shaft to see if it does end up leaking more. If it doesn't, pretty simple. We're just not going to do anything with it. We're going to put it all back together, having that washer flattened out. Now, just in case that is not our issue, we're going to take this seal, we're going to throw it in the freezer, let it get nice and cold and small so it'll fit in there much easier. Notice how there's no drips right there? And there's also nothing leaking off of the actual shaft or out of that seal, it looks like. No matter where you're looking at, kind of all the way around here. Now before we do anything with these seals, because it's not leaking yet, I want to check something. I want to see if this has any pressure in it, because a seal that isn't necessarily bad, like the one down there, doesn't really necessarily seem bad. It could have pressure built up in this gearbox. There's a vent cap on all these gearboxes, on every one of them. And let's say that that vent cap is plugged up with dirt and debris and everything else. Well, if it can't vent, it builds up excess pressure, and instead of having, maybe 1 pound of pressure tops, it might have 10 or 15, because obviously as these turn and they get hot during usage and sitting in the sun, builds up a lot of pressure and it'll start pushing oil out of the seal. So let's take this off and see if there's any pressure. It definitely, I don't know if you guys could hear it, but I just actually heard it. Now, since there's pressure building up in here, that would make me think that this vent is probably all plugged up with debris and everything else. So let's take it off and take a peek. All right, so let's see what happens when we apply about 80 pounds of pressure through an airline to it. Yep, it was definitely pretty plugged up. I'm sure you can see some of it on my face. Make sure you wear eye pro. It's been about 2 hours since we've checked in, and interesting turn of events. We now have oil dripping down off of that shaft, and we have a little puddle right here underneath. Now that we definitely have some evidence that we really have a leak, what we've done is we've cleaned this up, the stump jumper. I want it to be good and clean, because when we put our new seal on there, once we put our new seal on there, I'm going to be able to tell if we're still leaking or not without having to actually check the oil levels. The leak's not awful, but it's definitely leaking good. I think you can see right here on the bottom, we've got a drip there for sure. And if you look up there, you can actually see it coming out around that seal. So the seal is definitely bad, even though it didn't look bad, of course. And if we look down here below it, we can see a good little puddle. Now, I had all this cleaned up after we took everything out, wiped that off like you've seen, and then I wiped off the ground right below it because I wanted to be sure that it wasn't any sort of oil spill from before. Needless to say, I'd be able to tell by simply looking at this shaft and seeing whether or not there's oil on the shaft or not. So let's go ahead and pop the seal out. All right, notice we've got a bucket right here because, needless to say, as soon as we punch a hole in the seal, all that oil is going to run out, and I will need to have something to catch it. Or I'll have to wear it all, one or the other. I don't want to wear it all, so. kind of thinking that it'd punch through, but I guess not. I made my leak worse. There we go. All right, so pretty easy to see how they come out. You know, seals are a little tougher than I thought they would be. It actually came out a lot easier than I thought it would. That's what our seal looks like, and it's actually decently soft in there. But this spot right here, I know you're not gonna be able to tell probably on video, but you can feel it. It's collapsed or something. I don't know what the deal is with it. It definitely feels different than the rest of the seal. So I would say that's our problem. Move that out of the way. Now this is frosted because remember we tossed it in the freezer earlier. To make it to where it will fit in here much simpler. Okay, there's that. We've got a big socket here. The purpose of the big socket is not going to work. Dang it. Well, that's why we brought this with us too. Now I'm going to have to go get a piece of wood. All right, so we have that started. We've got it moving. Oops, we've got it moving in. Well, you can actually see the issue right here on the old one, or I think you can anyway. See how it's not perfectly a oval, or sorry, a circle. It's more of an oval. This flat spot right down here. Anyway, let's see if we can't use this to tap that in a little farther. All right, there we go. That's in, looks even all the way around. Now, let's do this. Let's wipe all this off again. Okay. Show you a little closer here. So this right here is exactly what the seal surface and everything's gonna look like. And this is our old one, like we talked about. It is, 3/8 of an inch, maybe closer to 1/2 inch thick. And then it just gets hammered in there. Now, getting it out was actually substantially easier than I expected it to be. Wasn't bad at all. Now I'm sure you noticed that when we took that seal out, not a whole lot of oil came out. Well, that's because this gearbox is very low on oil. It leaked obviously the entire time we were using it yesterday, and we don't want that because that's really bad on those gears in there and the bearings, of course. Now this gearbox never got hot, but we knew it was leaking because every time we go to use this thing and we check oil in all these gearboxes, we've always got to put oil in them. Now the interesting thing is yesterday I put probably 1.5 gallons of oil in this thing. So I'm curious to see how much we have to put in today to get it filled up again. Now it didn't take nearly as much as it did yesterday to fill up. It definitely took some oil to fill up. Now had it not leaked, we would end up filling it up some, but I didn't want to top this fluid off just to see if it was leaking or not, because I knew as soon as I took that seal out, it was going to drain anything that was in the gearbox out. Now we look and see if it's leaking under here again, which currently it doesn't appear to be. All right, so far so good. We are going to go ahead and push this under here. Maybe. Now you could make this lighter if you wanted to take the blades and stuff off. I chose not to go that route, but you may want to. Now the center of that is splined like we showed you before when we took it off. The biggest thing is making sure that the two pieces are lined up, which, like I said, there's only one way they can go. Once you get those lined up and you get this tightened up, now you can see that when I spin this, I'm spinning, well, you probably can't see it, but I can see the blade right here turning from the wing. So those are good. Now, the next thing I'm looking for is, that doesn't have a lot of play in it. It's pretty tight. We might have to back it off just a smidge. Oh, maybe not. Actually, it lined right up. We have our cotter pin back in. All of these have holes in them right here on the stump jumper to let moisture or oil out in our case, right? So we will continue to watch those. I don't think we'll have a problem, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Well, it's been a couple of days, and we actually only brush hogged about 10 acres, but we're gonna check this and see. There's no signs of leakage underneath, but let's just check our level, make sure we're good. Still full. That is a good sign. Very good sign. I'd be lying if I told you that I wasn't confident that it wasn't leaking, because, like I said, didn't see any signs underneath, so that's good for us. There's just one minor thing we have left to do. Well, we only knocked down about 30 acres this week with this thing, as you just seen in those real short clips. We're gonna check everything, see how much oil we have in the gearbox, which looks like there's none leaking. Yeah, I already knew that there was gonna be full of oil in there since there was no signs of it leaking underneath, obviously, but we've got one more thing to do, and it's actually something that a lot of folks don't do. And you can see that I slacked on this one quite a bit. Here on the side of your wings, they've got skid plates underneath of it to prevent the damage that you see there. This side right here is a far better example of what it should look like. See how it has both skid plates intact. The other thing you're gonna notice is that when you look from the side straight forward, you can see that this side is very straight and doesn't have a whole lot of bend to it. When we look at this side, you can see that there's quite a bit of bend, especially towards the front where that's been bent in. Now those skid plates are very easy to replace. It's literally 3 bolts. The bolts are carriage style bolts, so they hold themselves. You just tighten it, loosen it. So everything can be done with an impact. I'll show you what it's like though, just in case you're curious, because that really is a big thing, and keeping the edges of these wings intact and in good shape really can add a lot of life to your bush hog. You'll notice that mine are missing a couple of bolts. We'll show you here in a second. We're gonna need a bigger impact. Woo. Make sure you hold on to them so it doesn't cut your leg. Now you can see there's a big difference. This is what a new front shoe looks like for that wing. And this is what's left of our old one. There's just not a lot there. It's worn oddly. You know, this outer edge is actually, the inner edge right here is actually about the right thickness. But you can see that it's been worn down dramatically. By the way, the bolts have a square hole on them, so like a carriage bolt essentially. Style, I guess you could say. Now this one, you can see the circle for where the bolt is, but you can also see that it's worn down enough that it's become one with the plate. In case you're curious of what the new bolt looks like, they have a square right down here, but then of course the top is flat and it's beveled in to fit well. Like we talked about, you can see how this is bent in, so if I was looking straight down, right, I can't see the bottom at all. We are gonna have to bend that back out. I imagine it's going to require a winch. Unfortunately, because of the goof up with us letting that run as thin as it did, it got into this. And it kind of goofed up this hole right here. So what we're going to do is just put a punch in there and hammer it through a little bit to make the hole wide enough. Now you can look at this and see how much straighter it is as far as vertical, you know, up and down. Now because we waited too long, we actually did another 80 acres before replacing this, and obviously I wish I wouldn't have now. The unfortunate side is that when this happened, we lost the turnbuckle back there. So this wing was only getting held up by the hydraulic cylinder. So, you know, if we ran, say, 5 acres and we didn't lift it back up a little bit to keep it off the ground, it drug the ground, and that's what caused this whole situation right here. Highly recommend replacing these to prevent that kind of damage. So now you know. And by the way, the parts are really not that expensive. It's $80 for the, or $81, I think, from the dealership for that specific part. Just for that front shoe. I imagine the back is probably the same price, and obviously both wings, they're similar. They're mirrored, so I'm sure they're the same price as well. I didn't look because I didn't need the other side. Hope that helps keep your Bush Hog up and going and making it last for a long time. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a blessed week. And remember, if you can talk about somebody, talk to God about them.